Vixen here. How is everyone doing today? I'm doing fantastic. Minus, I'm snitching on my cat, who decided to bring a bird inside the house and she killed it and I had to clean it up. Cat things. But other than that, I'm doing fantastic on my day off. Thank you for wondering if you did. And if not, I don't apologize. Anywho, we are going to react to, I almost called him Scott Pilgrim. I'm sorry. Scott the Waz's Donkey Kong Barrel Blast. Yes, the curse. Okay, there you go. There was a thing to it. Can't think of the word, but yeah. Anywho, let's go ahead and dive into that in a 3, 2, and voila.
Hey y'all, Scott here. I wanted to see what having a personality was like, so I like spelunking now. It's either this or misanthropy, but these caves hide a secret, and I'm gonna get to the bottom of it. Why everybody who plays Donkey Kong Barrel Blast absolutely in the beginning, everybody was a virgin. Losers. For 2,007 years, humanity was content with anything but genitals. But then, everything changed. Scholars consider June 28th to be the turning point, where large portions of society stopped using their thumbs for abstinence and used them for something else instead. They lost their virginity. Losers. Discarding their abstinence, these unvirgins formed a new group of humanity, what we now call people, whose numbers have been growing at a sexual pace. It's not because they like it. There's so much disease, overpopulation, and marriage caused by sexual activity. So why do they do it? It's the curse. These poor souls became too distracted playing Donkey Kong Barrel Blast to fulfill their destiny and fell towards the darkness. But legend has it that one chosen virgin can break the curse of Barrel Blast, beat the game to defeat the monster from within, all while abstaining from sex and restoring virginity to our world. Society may have lost its virginity, but I'm here to find it. I have 2 duties today: beat Barrel Blast and not have sex.
I like them both.
Okay, let's add world peace to the list. The beginning of the end. So let's talk about Donkey Kong. My hearing's not until 10. Picture this: Nintendo floundering. How? Prior to the 1980s, Nintendo would experiment with all kinds of business ventures, so toys and games were always a constant. That is a fact. But once video games and arcades became the latest fad, Nintendo knew they had to take a crack at it with EVR Red, Block Fever, Computer Othello. This isn't working out. Okay, the game Radar Scope was a monumental flop in North America. Just take those machines and make a new game out of them, and that is how we got to this point. The original Donkey Kong from the arcades, a smash hit born out in 1981, was one of the first platformers as we know them today, which is just one of the many reasons behind its importance. This was the game that solidified Nintendo as a titan in gaming, the game that gave Shigeru Miyamoto his start in game design and direction, the game that introduced the most iconic video game character, debatably fictional character, of all time. Jumpman. You ever just accept this is an icon of society? Mario's first appearance, originally named Jumpman, you got a 2-for-1 here with icons, though as a kid I found it strange how you didn't play as the titular character. I mean, it's straight up called Donkey Kong, Nintendo. Read the room.
Wanna play as an ape, wanna play as an ape.
All DK does is plant himself at the top of the screen and throw barrels at you, like any form of plagiarism would. And all these characters are based on the archetypes of the cast of Popeye, in addition to taking heavy inspiration from King Kong. But we're not here to argue whether Donkey Kong was plagiarism or not. We're here to agree. Regardless, Donkey Kong was an enormous success, and without it, we would not have Nintendo in the form we do today. Donkey Kong. Of course, now with the successful property, Nintendo learned that it's never too early to start giving up. Donkey Kong Jr. He f***ed. Here you play as Donkey Kong's son, who is tasked with saving Donkey Kong from Mario. It follows the same idea of get to the top, but I do think this one has a lot more strategy involved in terms of how to get there the quickest while racking up a high score. While Jr. did well, it didn't do as well as the original Donkey Kong. So take this, make a multi-billion-dollar franchise out of it, and take this and just take it. While Mario spun off into his own franchise, the Donkey Kong series introduced Stanley the Bugman, a warning sign if I've ever seen one. Donkey Kong 3 is a vertical shooter where Stanley shoots bug spray into Donkey Kong ass, Donkey Kong's Donkey Kong ass, Donkey Kong ass. Get Donkey Kong to the top of the screen while shooting all the bees. Suffice to say, most players were not interested in bee-based software. Couple that with this releasing in 1983 right alongside the video game crash and just straight up not being anything like the previous Donkey Kong games, and Donkey Kong 3 killed the franchise, just like any Donkey Kong 3 would. Any series that's tried it, it's never worked out. Afterwards, the DK series is relegated to re-releases and Donkey Kong Jr. Math, the sign of any healthy franchise. But then, a decade after Donkey Kong 3, Nintendo revived and rebooted the series with Donkey Kong Country, developed by the studio Rare. It didn't evolve the arcade gameplay, rather it took the character of Donkey Kong, made him the protagonist, and built new worlds, characters, and a standardized style of gameplay to make this more of an actual series rather than flavor of the month, spray this monkey's ass with bug spray.
Chocolate.
Your villains were the Kremlings. You had a whole Kong family, including Donkey Kong's new sidekick, Diddy Kong. You had some of the most impressive graphics on a console up to that point. Donkey Kong Country was a massive success, and every massive success leads to a sexual revolution. Donkey Kong Country 2, 3, Game Boy side games, Donkey Kong Land 1, 2, and 3, Donkey Kong 64, bringing the series into 3D for the first time ever, all developed by Rare. Donkey Kong was finally starting to be treated like the Mario series with all this support. But even when that series was just a spin-off of Donkey Kong, it received loads of spin-offs itself in the form of Dr. Mario, Mario Golf, Mario Tennis, Mario Kart. So with all of these new games taking place in a world primed for expansion, it was fair to expect Donkey Kong to receive some spin-offs of his own, and in 1997, damn it, Diddy Kong Racing, not Donkey Kong. Donkey Kong doesn't appear at all in this game. In fact, fundamentally, no Donkey Kong or Donkey Kong Country elements appear outside of Diddy Kong himself. Like, you made this whole ass new world in the country games, and then the racing game's spin-off features crunch. These are just a bunch of damn Build-A-Bears. But hey, Diddy Kong Racing was an excellent kart racer, one that, to some, surpassed Mario Kart 64.
You can tell it did by all the sequels it got.
And it was still developed by Rare. They made all the Donkey Kong related stuff back then, and going into the GameCube generation, they were poised to make more.
Conflab at Microsoft!
That threw a wrench into plans, one of the most infamous studio acquisitions of all time. Microsoft buying Rare, making it impossible for them to continue being the head developer of Donkey Kong, considering how they were owned by Nintendo's rival. Many look at this as one of Nintendo's biggest blunders. I mean, outside of Donkey Kong, Rare developed GoldenEye, Banjo-Kazooie? You fool! But the thing is, I feel like if Nintendo saw legitimate value in their continued relationship with Rare, they would have purchased them, no doubt. Even though Nintendo owned 49% of the company at the time, Rare went to them as game development was becoming too expensive for them not to be a flat-out subsidiary. And Nintendo said no. They bought ND Cube 10 years later. They made Tube Slider. And even though they supposedly made some bids to buy Rare once Microsoft and Activision were throwing offers around, just the fact that they allowed an opening for them to be purchased by a competitor in the first place says to me they didn't value their work as much as we think they did. I mean, Rare made like half the Nintendo 64 library, and you bought... Welcome back to Nintendo Makes Good Choices. Man, Rare did have some Donkey Kong projects in the works at the time, though. All spin-offs, actually. There was Donkey Kong Coconut Crackers, a puzzle game for Game Boy Advance, and Diddy Kong Pilot, a Game Boy Advance successor to Diddy Kong Racing. While Microsoft forbade Rare from making GameCube games, they could still produce Game Boy Advance titles simply because Microsoft wasn't in the handheld market. So bring on It's Mr. Pants.
And 9 months later, you were born.
These were reworked versions of those Donkey Kong projects. Coconut Crackers became Pants, and Diddy Kong Pilot became Banjo Pilot. But there was a big one that never saw the light of day. Donkey Kong Racing for GameCube. This seemed to be the logical evolution of Diddy Kong Racing, incorporating far more Donkey Kong Country elements, riding animal buddies from those games, taking place in these jungle settings. But of course, this was canceled after Rare's acquisition. They attempted to rework it into a few different projects without the DK license for Xbox and Xbox 360. That never worked. Guys, it's not Donkey Kong Racing. It's Earl! While all these projects were retooled or canceled, Nintendo and Rare would collaborate again via the Donkey Kong Country re-releases for GBA. Yeah, sure, we can still be friends. You'll just hear me and my new boyfriend f*** all the time. Rare developed these ports, so there was some wiggle room for them to work on Nintendo games. Maybe they could make some brand new portable DK titles.
Tell me when.
The 2000s! Listen, I'm just throwing it out there. Bad era for Donkey Kong. economic recession. Without its key developer of the past decade, I think Nintendo didn't really know what to do with this thing. To be honest, if you had the keys to this kingdom, you wouldn't either. So f it, let's get weird.
Yeah.
All according to plan. The most well-known Donkey Kong project from the 2000s has to be the Donkey Konga series, rhythm games for the GameCube developed by Namco, specifically because of their work on the Taiko Drum Master games. I mean, comparing the two, they're very similar. But where Donkey Konga differs is its use of, well, that, and the DK Bongos accessory. Sure, you can play Donkey Konga with a regular controller.
You can also brush your teeth with mice.
But it was designed around
Excuse
the DK Bongos. Smack and clap along to the music. It was a gimmicky yet very novel spin-off idea for DK. The barrel-like bongos were a trademark of the series ever since that first arcade game. The title itself featured characters from the Donkey Kong Country series. Diddy Kong Racing may have been the better Donkey Kong spin-off, but Donkey Konga was the better Donkey Kong spin-off. And a lot of that was due to those damn bongos. I mean, talk about unique accessories. Go on, talk about them. So, of course, you couldn't just stop at one use for these things. I mean, they're bongos. There's a million things you can do with them, all of which are Donkey Konga based. Donkey Konga 2 is basically just more of the same, now with an updated song list, and the same can be said for Donkey Konga 3, though that one never left Japan. They wanted to make the most out of these bongos, and after 3 rhythm games, many would stop right there, but Nintendo refused. This was Donkey Kong Now, a bongo's bitch, because Nintendo's prime development team, EAD, pumped out Donkey Kong Jungle Beat, a brand new Donkey Kong platformer for GameCube designed around using the DK bongos.
To prove the skeptics wrong.
I mean, Jungle Beat is a very well-designed and fun game, and a new Donkey Kong platformer developed in-house at Nintendo ain't something to complain about if you weren't in the house next to them. Donkey Kong's presence on the handhelds was just as abnormal, though. Outside of the country games, we got DK King of Swing on the GBA in 2005, developed by Payon. Somebody had to do it. Now, who is Payon? Well, the developer of DK King of Swing, of course. Thanks, Dad. They seem to be mostly a support studio, one you call if you need help getting things done. But this happens to be one of their few sole development credits. This is a Payon-only joint, and it's something only they can do. Disappoint me. The King of Swing isn't bad, it just feels painfully generic. Like, this could have been for any franchise, but with an added Donkey Kong coat of paint. Ew. It's just a puzzle platformer, nothing too offensive, but my god, when I look at this, I want to feel! You grab onto these walls and continually move clockwise or counterclockwise, depending on what hand you grab them with. It's a fine idea, it's just the execution is a bit bland. At that time, King of Swing was the closest we really got to a traditional DK game outside of Jungle Beat, and how close was that really? Oh, Jungle Beat only retained Donkey Kong bananas and barrels from DKC. Outside of that, that's what I'm saying. Payon proved themselves worthy of crafting new yet simple Donkey Kong-based experiences for handheld, so Nintendo commissioned them again for a King of Swing sequel on Nintendo DS, DK Jungle Climber. God damn, I mean, DK King of Swing was simplistic looking, but at the very least it had some sort of funky style to it. This is just pathetic. Like, don't do that! So Payon was out of the DK series, pumping out tolerable experiences. Rare came back one last time to develop a Nintendo DS remake of Diddy Kong Racing with more Donkey Kong references in tow, both in 2007. So Nintendo was pumping out DK spin-offs like mad this year. Why not another? Hey, so we have one series of DK spin-offs made by Payon, another focused on racing, even if Donkey Kong Racing never saw the light of day, and another that'll get you evicted. So for the third Donkey Kong spin-off in 2007, let us combine all three to get— oh, what the—
The Donkey Kong series has been through so much. Imagine what its therapy sessions are like. This era of the franchise can definitely be attributed to Rare's acquisition by Microsoft, so all Nintendo knew how to do was to contract companies to make spin-offs for them, until they eventually found a new home for the mainline series with Retro Studios in 2010 with Donkey Kong Country Returns. But before that, we got one last whimper from this era of spin-offs in 2007. Why don't you ever hear anybody talk about this game? Because everybody who's played it is too busy f***ing their wife.
Donkey Kong Barrel Blast, the 10th commandment. Generally considered one of the worst Nintendo games of all time, Barrel Blast sits at a 46 on Metacritic, which is the same as Sonic the Hedgehog 2006, worse than Balan Wonderworld, Aliens Colonial Marines. Some of the most notorious bad video games of the 21st century, and Donkey Kong Barrel Blast is right there with them. Is this reception fair, or did a bunch of game reviewers trip and fall? You know, I have heard some people say this game is unfairly hated. I've also heard voices in my head, so who knows, maybe this was just a misunderstanding.
She may have killed my brother, but maybe he was lying.
Barrel Barrel Blast was developed by Payon once again. I guess Nintendo saw them as the home of DK spin-offs back then. What an honor. This title was originally announced at E3 2006 for the Nintendo GameCube under the name DK Bongo Blast. You can see a few instances of King of Swing inspiration, such as Donkey Kong's player icon here, as well as just using the abbreviation DK in the title. But this was a completely different beast from what Payon developed before. This was a racing game, and not just any racing game, a bad one. This was set to be the 5th game compatible with the DK Bongos, 6 if they had courage. But hey, this looked like another interesting and creative use of the accessory. The one problem, I demand phallic jokes! E3 2006 was definitely a passing of the torch between the GameCube and Wii. Nintendo was preparing for its next console after the last one sort of flopped, though not without a few last releases for that struggling GameCube. Nintendo wasn't gonna end their system without a bang. 2006 gave us Chibi Robo, Odama, Baten Kaido's Origins, and the death of Gerald Ford. While Nintendo was planning to support the GameCube in its last few years, most of the titles in development were pushed towards its successor, the Wii, even if those titles were already revealed and demoed at events running on GameCube. The most notorious was The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess, which did still end up releasing on GameCube, though this was more so out of obligation. Super Paper Mario was originally shown for GameCube, though that version was scrapped entirely in favor of it being a Wii exclusive, and much like that game, DK Bongo Blast quickly moved over to Wii as well. I mean, the change was announced roughly 3 months after it debuted as a GameCube exclusive, because the Wii lineup without it just made no damn sense. By spring of 2007, it was confirmed to only be releasing on Wii, renamed to Donkey Kong Jet Race in Europe, and over here, Donkey Kong Barrel Blast. Oh, excuse me, Europe. Barrel Blast. It was to launch in Japan on June 28th, 2007, North America on October 8th, and Europe on January 25th, 2008. They were a late bloomer.
And 2007 was a monumental year, one of the biggest years ever for gaming and DVDs. Something had to give. You couldn't experience everything, so when Barrel Blast launched, many players had to choose between maintaining abstinence and playing Barrel Blast. Those poor bastards never looked back. I've only played this game for a bit. That's basically just grazing a crotch. But that tells me I am the chosen one. I tried playing it before, I couldn't. So I tried another copy, and about 40 copies later, it's tough. But I made some progress in the game. Okay, I can withstand this. I am immune to this game's spooky groin expansion, and it will not affect my schedule. I have things to do tomorrow. I've tried getting laid in the past, but not anymore. I'm tired of no sex being shunned in society. I'm tired of being the virgin in the haystack. I'm no longer following society. Society's gonna follow me. And everybody's gonna have not sex and harmony. Nobody will feel left out, and I'll get recognition. A custom mug at least. I could use a bodyguard to ensure no unnecessary crotch enters the premises, but I must go forth regardless. With great power comes great virginity. I will restore chastity to this world. I can beat Barrel Blast without having sex.
Impractical.
The door wasn't locked.
My sirens are going off. Goes off whenever somebody's trying to
You sure that wasn't an air monitor?
As sure as I am cordial. Anybody trying to lose their virginity?
I've loosened my virginity.
Do you know what that thing's capable of? It's a ticking time bomb of testosterone!
Hey, I'm taking precautions.
As somebody who's not a fan of sex, let alone your I have an obligation to society to prevent you from mating, okay? This thing ruined my family, and it gave us more of them.
And I appreciate that, but the only way we can live in a sex-free community is by beating this game to break the curse. And I could use your help.
Normally I'd cry and bitch about the thought of doing anything in relation to that game, but I'm a pretty open-minded kind of guy, okay? And I'd do anything to unban the act of no sex in society. I'm in. So the only way to stop f***ing is to start f***ing?
Yep, and we're about to film our first sex tape.
Why?
Donkey Kong Barrel Blast or
Why?
Donkey Kong Jet Race. Which one's the better name? The one that's not this. Shape the Wii Remote and Nunchuck to race. What is this, some kind of shitty game? Obviously with the jump to Wii, they had to include Wii Remote controls, and these seem to be a direct conversion of how your integrity would be lost with the DK Bongos. But hey, the Wii supports GameCube controllers. You can play GameCube games on the Wii, including all the DK Bongo games. Hell, some Wii games allow you to use GameCube controllers. So, of course, with Barrel Blast being designed to use the DK Bongos, it just makes perfect sense for the final release to support the accessory, or at the very least, the traditional GameCube controller, as it was clear you could use it with older builds of the game. But of course, what makes more sense? This game doing that, or realizing I have trust issues?
Lucky you, that's the first step to not getting laid.
So that's what foreplay sounds like. Gotta say, Barrel Blast is one of the quickest loading Wii games I've ever played. Didn't even flinch. Unlike me, that's all I'm doing. Look at all these options. We can play 4 tracks in a row, not play 4 tracks in a row, not play 4 tracks in a row faster, not play 4 tracks in a row, and not give a shit. On the right-hand side, we can check out Cranky's Flight School, records, options, and Candy's challenges.
This is gonna pose a problem.
Well, let's start off with a Jungle Grand Prix. We choose our character. I got Donkey Kong, Diddy Kong, Dixie Kong, and epididymal hypertension. But right below them are the Kremlings from the Donkey Kong Country series. Turns out the character roster here is focused on the Kongs versus the Kremlings, light versus dark, good versus evil, Christ versus Satanism. Every Kong has to have a rival, and because of that, half of these Kremlings were created just for Barrel Blast. Yeah, there's only like a handful of Kremlings that are legitimate characters, so Bayon had to go out of their way to craft Kludge. Yep, that is not organic. Come on, you had loads of Kremlings to choose from. We live in a world where Klubba exists, and you're just not gonna take advantage of that? I mean, it's kind of a cute idea to build your character roster out of the concept of heroes versus villains, but I think they finalized that idea before going, so in comes the Kremlings. We got Critter with Kip and Cass as newcomers. Who are Kip and Cass? Well, Diddy and Dixie Kong's rivals, of course. Thank you, Dad. I'll pick Donkey Kong because I need a character flaw. Rookie difficulty, Topaz Cup, and DK Bongos because this game supports them and I'm not narcoleptic. No support for the DK Bongos. The entire reason behind this game's concept, the entire reason this game exists in the first place. Now, it's
That
just
sucks.
the Wii remote and nunchuck to race. Yeah, well, that's not a selling point. That's a cautionary tale. The Wii's appeal was that the motion controls mimicked real-life scenarios, which is why Mario Kart Wii came bundled with the Wii wheel and had you steer as if you were driving a car. That was legitimately exciting for casual audiences back then. But Barrel Blast came out earlier, and what does Barrel Blast do to simulate driving with this immersive motion-based video game controller?
It
Suffice to
screws
say,
it
I failed
over.
my initial driving test. So, Donkey Kong Barrel Blast is a racing game in the DK universe designed around the DK bongos. Thus, of course, all characters have rocket-powered bongos attached to them at all times, naturally. By hitting them, you accelerate and can move left or right by hitting left or right. Now, with the bongos peripheral, it's obviously one big, giant, stupid excuse to use them, but a creative and somewhat charming one at the very least. Without the bongos, it goes from stupid to just fucking dumb. Shake the controllers as if you're banging on the bongos. Wow, it's so realistic. This is the best way this game could have possibly been played. It's almost like I'm actually banging on bongos, and only the Wii Remote and Nunchuck could replicate this sensation. Here's the thing though, you may think
Sarcasm.
that you have to shake the controllers throughout the whole race. No, all you have to do is shake them enough to get to max speed, and then you're all set. You move forward automatically, like most apes on a jet. And to shift from left or right, shake left or right, jump by smacking both of them down. It's pretty simple. So is murder. You ruined a perfectly good jet barrel race game with motion controls, Nintendo. Why do you keep doing that? I'm not gonna say these controls don't work, but that doesn't mean I'm not thinking it. While this functions, it's far from enjoyable. It's tolerable at best. A gimmick like this only works when you go all the way with it, i.e., bongos. Simulating that gimmick rather than just doing it makes the entire experience feel unnecessary. Like, what's the point? See, they wanted to design a racing game around that old peripheral, much like how Jungle Beat was, with these both feeling like the developers were challenging themselves. Let's make a platformer that uses bongos. It worked, but definitely made the game a bit inaccessible, so when they brought Jungle Beat over to the Wii in 2009, they tweaked the title to be playable with the Wii Remote and Nunchuck, which made it easier to appreciate Jungle Beat from a level design perspective. Though, weirdly enough, its existence felt a bit more forced without the DK bongos. Still a solid game, though what made it special and unique was gone. You can't just expect a game that was designed to work with this to be just as fun and quirky without it. Yeah, it's easier to play Dance Dance Revolution with a D-pad. Doesn't make you likable. But what if you took Dance Dance Revolution and removed the dance mat, removed the D-pad controls, and forced you to waggle the Wii remote in the direction it tells you? Do you think that would be stupid? No, that's not stupid. That's Donkey Kong Barrel Blast and stupid. The controls here are dumb. They're just dumb. Imagine if in Mario Kart you had to stand up to use an item. No reason, you just have to stand up. It's unique. That's this game's reasoning behind its motives. Shaking to get to max speed is undeniably irritating. Even though you only have to do it for a bit at the start and then you're golden, every time you hit, you lose momentum and you have to shake the controllers to get back up to speed. God damn! I mean, this isn't like in Mario Kart where, oh, you got hit, bam, you're back in action in a few seconds. Barrel Blast, everything stops. It just stops. Things screech to a crawl when you get hit, and then you have to get back up to top speed, but if you don't have a straight, large stretch of land to shake to, if you get hit in a field full of obstacles, or God forbid, at all, it's a bitch to get up and running again, and you have to deal with the shame and embarrassment of going 10 while everybody else is going 20. This is one of the slowest damn ape racing games I've ever played. Nintendo disagrees. And it's all made worse by the fact that all the tracks have bumper lanes. You can't fall off. You can't go off course. You can't lose at the game. You can just do really poorly. So you pretty much cruise through the levels automatically. You can't fall off the track. You can't veer off the track. You can't go any faster than this. What's the challenge? Having arms. It wears on you, not even physically, but mentally. Constantly hearing the bongo taps come out of the Wii Remote speaker, doing the same movements with your arms over and over again while falling deeper and deeper into this game's core values.
I can't do this anymore. I feel cold.
I can tell.
I may be able to withstand a video game for the betterment of society, but my immune system can't.
Jesus, you look horrible.
Hey!
You need nourishment. I need no sex. Stat!
It can't be delivered. You can't mail hazardous materials.
No sex delivery. He's a vigilante. I prefer the term felon.
This is a gun.
Hey, nice setup. I love walls. You want to stay? I got 3 more of them.
So I'm trying to stop sex and I need help doing it, so I have Rex over here guarding me, making sure I stop sex without having sex, but he can't handle all this sex. So I was wondering if you could stick around to resuscitate him if possible, so I can continue to not have sex while having sex, while Rex guards me, while you guard Rex. That would be great.
Damn, is that a monkey with sunglasses?
Is this what the gun was for?
To be fair, there's some strategy here. See those bananas? You want to collect them to fill up your wild move meter. Finally, a racing game with a wild move meter. It's fundamentally just a boost that you pull off by holding the analog stick in whatever direction to charge and letting go to accelerate for a bit. But running into other players, enemies, or barrels laid across the track while one is still in effect continues the wild move for longer. So if you string together enough combos, I mean, do I have to spell it out for you? Pulling off wild moves effectively is how you get far in Barrel Blast, so you want to pull one of them out when you see a string of barrels or some other obstacle you could ram into. This is the defining element of Barrel Blast's game design, boosting into things and creating combos, and you know what? It might be something I consider to be enjoyable.
Wait!
When you're boosting and trying to maneuver to the nearest obstacle that you can combo into, this is when the game is fast, frantic, when it has more strategy. It's satisfying to pull off a large string of wild moves, but it just doesn't happen enough. Oftentimes, there's only like 2 sets of barrels near each other, so it's like, okay, that was pointless. Obstacles aren't set up in enough ways across all of the tracks to make this a compelling gameplay element, and most of the time, there's too much shit in the way, like these steel barrels. These don't count. But much like life, you can always resort to violence. The shit out, you can beat it, all with the A button. So you can punch enemies, opponents, and barrels with A, use items with B, pause the game with plus, back out with home, turn off with power, throw it out with spite. But before all of that, you want to check out these items you can pick up on the track. Any mascot kart racer needs fun and creative items to use against other players, and Donkey Kong Barrel Blast? Well, joke's on you, those aren't carts. This one gets you bananas. This one gets you more bananas. This one is bad bananas. The items in this game are boring as hell. Most of them feel like they kind of do the same thing and that there's no real strategy to using them. It's just get an item, use it immediately. That's what I do with all of them, and while a good chunk of items have equivalents in Mario Kart, they're so much lamer here. What, the blue shell? It targets the player in first place and explodes on impact. Quox? He flies to first place and takes 10 bananas from the player while pecking at him. Watch out, motherfuckers, I have Quox.
Whoa! You scared me there.
Stop sucking this game's
I wouldn't if it had one.
But then you have Squawks, which flies up to the player in front of you and stops them from using wild moves. Manny Neki goes to the player behind you and takes 10 bananas from them, which is just the same as Quawks, but it's punching down and looks completely f***ing different. Worcestershire? Prom Monkey gets sent out to the players in front of you and gets rid of their bananas, so it's the same as Squawks, but it just makes you look like an ass. Oh wow, the tasty melon makes you invincible, and you haven't played this game. Why? The blazing banana gets laid out on the track and makes opponents lose bananas if they hit it. Oh my god, just each other already. These items are boring as hell and are just a means to an end. Each one is so specific in what it does, and it's not readily apparent based on how the item looks. How most of the time after I use an item, I still have no clue how it works. Like, oh man, I got an item. The f do you want me to do with this info? Now, there is a special gimmick with these things. The item boxes are balloons, both blue and red. Red balloons are for the Kongs, blue are for the Kremlings. Well, you can go through either or as one or the other. If you go through the balloon color of your team, your item will be a little enhanced. So since the melon is only in the red balloons, as a Kong, you'll be invincible for longer. Since Mini Neki is only in the blue balloons, as a Kremling, using them will not only nab 10 bananas from your opponent, but remove a wild move of theirs as well. And this mentality applies to pretty much every item in the game. Where would I be without him? Not a horrible idea, but not necessarily a creative one. This feels like such a surface level fan idea for a new Mario Kart game. Ooh, different item boxes for different characters. How about different tires, but only for Lemmy? Well, this is a racing game, so it all comes down to the course design. 16 tracks included across 6 cups. A great deal, I say as I'm paying for college. I mean, 16 tracks is the going rate for most Mario Kart titles, so at the time of this game's release, Mario Kart games are starting to include 32 courses, 16 new and 16 retro. No worries, no worries. Donkey Kong Barrel Blast is a new concept for humanity. We can't expect it to have everything Mario Kart has right out the gate. It's a newborn, an infant. Treat it with respect. So 16 tracks overall, that's nothing to sneeze at. Let's see them.
Achoo.
We got DK Jungle, DK Jungle Falls, which is more DK Jungle, DK Jungle Sunset,
Which could be anything.
Salty Sea, Shimmering Sea, Open Ocean, all seaside tracks, Mount Dynamite Remix. They didn't even try to hide that one. You see what the problem is here? Yes, there may be 16 courses, but when there are only 7 distinct themes, there could be 40 of them and it wouldn't make a difference. With every track basically being on rails without being able to follow up the course, it's hard to really tell each one apart and pick favorites outside of the limited themes. Oh, why do you like DK Jungle Falls compared to DK Jungle? Well, I like this barrel being there instead of that barrel being there. And 6 cups? Yeah, sure. The final 2 are Selection Cup and Random Cup. The former giving you the ability to pick whatever 5 tracks to play in a row, and the latter being a random assortment of 5 tracks being played in a row. Why stop there? Why not a Random Selection Cup, where they give you a random limited assortment of tracks to select from? Why not a cup that lets you schedule when you want to play it? Why not a cup that's a calculator?
God, there's so many options here. I could imagine doing this alone? With another person? Heck, maybe even 4.
Why would you though? To see 5 of the 16 tracks have bees as an obstacle?
That's more impressive than you may think. Were bees in Citizen Kane?
Maybe not. But they were around during Genghis Khan's raid.
Oh my
They
gosh,
did
you were
nothing
so
about it.
dying.
Hey, let me watch my apes in peace.
You're a sick wench!
Oh, come on, you're just being a fucking loser.
Oh, I haven't lost anything.
Guys, it's really hard to stay abstinent with all this shouting.
Here, mark him with this so I can always tell which one of us is a fucking creep!
What does the A stand for?
You're a fucking creep!
Playing through the cups, you can unlock a decent selection of the characters. You get the mainstays: Lanky Kong, Funky Kong, Tiny Kong, Kludge, Copter. Were you expecting a crocodile with an afro? Good. The rest of the characters you unlock via Candy's challenges, an excuse to ogle a monkey. Just go to the zoo! Here we have 32 challenges to complete, where you only play as Donkey Kong, with characters like Wrinkly Kong, Cranky Kong, Clump, and King K. Rool being locked behind certain ones. And there we have it, the final roster. You know, with half the Kremlings being original creations just for Barrel Blast, I have to once again severely question the choice to make this roster heroes versus villains. There are so many other characters from Donkey Kong that could have and should have made it in before Kludge. I believe in what I believe. But it's all worth it to see a full lineup of characters I'll never use. Plus, they all have their own unique stats, so if you needed a reason to use Clump over Kludge, you don't. But to get to this point, you have to go through some of the most tedious challenges I have ever endured. 32 challenges, roughly 1/3 of them take place on the same DK Jungle track. Roughly another third takes place on the Cranky's Flight School variant of that map. You had the chance to split up like 2 challenges per track. Instead, there are straight up tracks that just don't have any representation here. So damn many of these are on the exact same course, and the challenges themselves? Collect 200 bananas. Collect 700 bananas. Collect 200 bananas. All run by a monkey that I don't know what Nintendo wants me to think of. Like, Jesus, Candy, just wear a name tag. But hidden behind the final challenge is one last unlockable character. On DK Jungle, goddammit.
I thought you were a virgin!
Yeah, you're getting like a pro.
This challenge is absurd for no other reason than they make the time to complete it like 2 seconds shorter than it should be. You have to punch the barrels and use your wild moves at just the right time. And even when you do, like, what did I do wrong? And finally, after winning, I don't know what I did right. But for completing all the missions, we unlock Ultra Barrel Donkey Kong. We just have to hover over Donkey Kong and old Z to play as it. Like, Jesus Christ! While the other characters are fairly well balanced, Ultra Barrel DK is literally the best in all categories. Like God intended, sure. But does that make for a fair game? If every character could use the Ultra Barrels? Sure, maybe. But no, this breaks everything! Your prize for beating the game? Never playing it again. I mean, why bother? There's nothing else to do. What, does Cranky's Flight School count? Say it does. I dare you. There's nothing else here. No track editor, no story mode, no online. I mean, just compare this to Mario Kart Wii, a game that released a few months later, all right? You get 32 tracks, multiple control schemes with many relying on motion control, online multiplayer, online tournaments with missions, battle mode with 10 tracks exclusive to it, 26 characters with 3 of them being from Donkey Kong, 36 different vehicles, while this one... Gludge. Jesus Christ, even Diddy Kong Racing on the Nintendo 64 had more content outside of the characters, but at least all of them were more unique. Barrel Blast's lack of content can be attributed to it being a gimmick title at its core. We're only making this to see if we can, and you're only buying this because you make poor life choices. But on the Wii, this is one of the most useless games I've ever experienced. If it used the DK bongos, it may not have been better, but it would have made more sense. Though, I don't think it's as horrible as people make it out to be. Oh, it's bad, sure, but a lot of the complaints I can't really get behind. The visuals? I mean, sure, they aren't groundbreaking, but it runs fine and looks better than most Wii games that were on the market. Acting like it looks worse than a GameCube game? Like, have you seen worse than a GameCube game? That's just a dog's ass. It didn't have online multiplayer. Sure, that's ridiculous in the context of the value of the package in comparison to other racing games at the time, but is that really a problem when you don't like the game to begin with? This game has horrible controls, bland track design, and worst of all, I can't play it for hours on end with my buds. The core gameplay isn't horrible. I think there's some merit to the ideas like the wild moves, but with the slow speed, limited number of unique courses, funky controls, lack of modes, and no real purpose to existing, like, why would you play this? Oh yeah, that.
You did it.
All in a day's work. You know, I thought Barrel Blast was gonna be horrible. No, it was just bad.
I remember my first time.
Wasn't this your first time?
Yeah, I remember it.
I beat the game, but the curse hasn't lifted. People are still f***ing. If people weren't still f***ing, Rex would be senator.
Oh, looks like you still have one challenge left.
Wait, what? No, it doesn't matter. Barrel Blast is always going to exist no matter what, and as long as it's not forced upon anybody, who cares? We shouldn't judge people who play it or not. Playing it doesn't make you disgusting, or not playing it doesn't make you a loser. We're all adults here and on different paths of life. Maybe you've already played Barrel Blast, or maybe you haven't. But it doesn't make you a better or worse person because of it.
You know what? My uncle was a big fan of Barrel Blast. I kept hearing all these stories about people telling me, oh, he's so cool just because of it. Like, he was getting hyped up so much, he could finish the game in 14 seconds flat.
My grandpa could do it in 10.
But my aunt, she only played Barrel Blast the one time.
My cousin could play it twice.
Well, everybody thought less of her because of it. And I've distanced myself from that entire side of the family. I shouldn't have. I let my own personal way of life cloud my judgment of others. I get that I may be against everything this game stands for, but that doesn't mean other people should be chastised for doing what they love. Jeb, you're not a fucking creep. You're a fucking friend.
Aww.
You know what? It was wrong of me to think so lowly of you because you didn't enjoy the game. I mean, I personally love Barrel Blast, but that doesn't mean you have to.
Even if I beat Barrel Blast, curse or no curse, it's not gonna make people stop doing what they want to do. As long as they're not hurting others or themselves, what gives me the right to want them to conform to what I am? All that matters is that I'm comfortable with myself.
A
No matter
sex
how much
habit.
changes, I'm always gonna be that virgin at heart, regardless of if I beat Barrel Blast or not. And I'm gonna. Oh, I'm beating this Donkey Kong game without having sex. Because I'm a virgin, damn it!
Yes.
Yeah! Get up! Just get up!
watching.
I did it.
I'm so proud of him. Excuse me. I wasn't trying to do that. I just wanted to pause it. I do apologize for the end with the loud music. I do apologize. I was expecting that. Oh my gosh, that was fun. Can we have like more no sex having or virgin stuff, please? That was awesome. I can't stop laughing. I want this to play. Oh my gosh, that was great. That I wasn't expecting any of that. But no, if you guys like games and other people hate on games, enjoy your games that you like, okay? I like certain games that people don't like, and it's fine. And vice versa. Like a bunch of my friends, they love Sonic Colors. I'm trying not to talk about Sonic, but I am. They love Sonic Colors. I don't like it. I played the first 2 levels, couldn't do it. Now, because I lost a bet, I have to actually play that game fully. I'm gonna hate every second of it, but that's just my cup of tea. And vice versa, there's a lot of people that like Kingdom Hearts 3. I wasn't a big fan of it. The gameplay was great. The story, in my opinion, well, let me not go into that because we're not talking about Kingdom Hearts 3. We're talking about Donkey Kong Barrel Blast. I never played. The last Donkey Kong I played was Donkey Kong Country. Way back when. I mean, granted, the occasional Mario Party or Mario Kart or Super Smash Bros. But an actual Donkey Kong game, I've not played that in so long, so I should pick that up actually. But yeah, no, if you guys like games other people don't like, there's no reason anyone should fight with you about it. Not everyone likes the same things. I like shakes. I can't show what the brand is. I'm not gonna get in trouble. But I like shakes. Other people don't like shakes. I have a friend who doesn't like chocolate. I'm impartial to it. Other people love it. So everyone's just different. Anyways, that's my segment on that. But yeah, until next time, loves. Ta-ta!